Your worst enemy isn't that person who wronged you. It isn't bad luck. It isn't the economy. It's the voice inside your own head. And right now, it's probably winning. Buddha said it 2,500 years ago. Modern neuroscience confirmed it last decade, and yet almost nobody does anything about it. Here's the thing. Nobody tells you. Your brain is not a muscle. It doesn't get tired from thinking. The exhaustion you feel when you sit down to do something hard, that's not fatigue, that's resistance. And it has a completely different cure. In the next 15 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly where that resistance comes from, why every motivational video you've ever watched have probably made it worse, and a 5-part method rooted in Buddhist philosophy and backed by neuroscience that actually fixes it. Drop one thing in the comments that you've been putting off, one specific thing. I'll explain exactly why you're stuck on it by the end. Block 1, the monkey mind, why your brain fights you. Let me paint a picture of a typical day. You wake up 8 hours of doing what other people tell you. Meetings, emails, reaction after reaction after reaction, then home. Netflix, your phone, more phone, you fall asleep with it in your hand, wake up, repeat. Not a single moment where you decide what your mind does, not one moment of voluntary difficulty, not one moment of genuine presence. And yet you feel this nagging sense that there's something important you should be doing. A project, a skill, a book you wanted to write, but every time you sit down to start it, something stops you. Tiredness, wrong mood, tomorrow, Monday. Most people call this laziness, weak willpower, lack of motivation. That's completely wrong, and that misdiagnosis is exactly why nothing changes. What you're experiencing is a 2-million-year-old survival program. Your brain is wired to conserve energy. Hard tasks burn more. Easy distraction burns almost nothing. So your brain constantly nudges you toward the easy option, not because it's your enemy, but because it's doing exactly what it was designed to do. Buddhist monks call this the monkey mind, an attention that jumps from branch to branch, of thought to thought, never settling. A notification jump, an uncomfortable feeling jump, a hard task, immediate jump to something pleasurable. You know this feeling, you sit down to work on something important, and 3 minutes later, you're looking at your phone or thinking about something completely unrelated, or suddenly discovering an urgent thing you absolutely have to check. Anything but what you planned. Stanford professor Clifford Nass spent years studying what constant attention switching does to the brain. His conclusion was brutal. People who habitually multitask can't filter irrelevant information, and they can't control their memory. They're chronically distracted. And most terrifyingly, they cannot focus even when they desperately want to. Cal Newport puts it even more precisely in Deep Work. Once your brain has been conditioned to seek distraction, it constantly craves it. This isn't a willpower problem in a given moment. It's a question of what mode your brain spends most of its time in. If you spend most of your time switching, consuming, reacting, your brain physically rewires for that mode. And then when you need to concentrate, it can't. Not because you're not trying hard enough, but because you've trained it in the wrong direction. There's one more mechanism worth understanding. When you face something difficult, your brain fires the same protective response as a physical threat. Cortisol, the urge to escape. That's why a hard task literally feels like danger. And your brain goes looking for relief. The fridge, your phone, anything that delivers a fast, small hit of reward. Social media, games, endless content. These aren't just entertainment, they're dopamine delivery machines. Every like, every notification, every new episode, small, reliable hits of reward that train your brain to come back for more. Newport's point is sharp here. If every time you feel the slightest boredom waiting in a queue, sitting at your desk, riding the subway, you reach for your phone, your brain has already been restructured. It no longer knows how to exist in silence. It cannot tolerate 1 minute of not being stimulated. That's the real problem, not that you're lazy. You've trained your brain to avoid the exact mental state that serious work requires. Recognizing this without judgment is step 1. Buddhist monks said it first. Before you try to change the mind, learn to see it. Watch how it works. Notice how it jumps. Notice how it searches for escape from discomfort. You can't fix what you can't see, and your brain isn't broken. It's just configured wrong. That's actually good news because configurations can be changed. Block two, Wu Wei. Stop fighting yourself. Here's what most people do when they feel resistance: they push harder. Can't focus, force it, keep procrastinating, add more discipline, wrong mood, grind through it anyway. This doesn't work. Not because you're not trying hard enough, because it's fundamentally the wrong approach. Imagine trying to swim against a powerful current. You can exhaust yourself fighting it and barely move. Or you can find the angle where the current works with you instead of against you. The mind operates the same way. 2,500 years ago, the Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu described a principle he called Wu Wei, often translated as non-action, but more accurately, effortless action, movement in alignment with the natural flow, not against it. He wrote, "Let go and everything will be done." That sounds paradoxical, but the insight is this: when you try to force yourself with pure will, you create internal war. One part pushes forward, another part digs in. That war burns enormous energy for minimal output. Wu Wei is not passivity, it's a completely different quality of effort that flows with how your mind actually works rather than against it. In practice, this means four things. First, stop declaring war on the task. When you look at something hard and think, why can't I just do this? You've already created resistance through your attitude. Try this instead. Just notice the task exists. No pressure, no I have to. Just what is the very next small step? Not the whole project, just one step. Small enough that your brain doesn't activate its threat response, small enough to start. Second, work with your mind's rhythms, not against them. Newport discovered something counterintuitive. Most people think they need breaks from work. What they actually need is scheduled breaks from distraction. Big difference. Instead of I'll work, then check my phone. Decide in advance, I'll work from 9 to 11. No phone. At 11:15, I'll do whatever I want. The key is this: you don't react to the impulse to get distracted the moment it hits. You tell the mind, your time is coming, and it will wait. This is far easier than trying to kill the urge entirely. Third, reframe obstacles as the path. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The obstacle in the way becomes the way. What impedes action advances action. Every hard task will feel impossible sometimes. Every skill will feel unreachable before it becomes natural. The moment you stop expecting it to be easy, it becomes just slightly easier. Not because the task changed, because you stopped wasting energy being surprised that it's hard." Fourth, embrace boredom as a tool. Newport makes a direct connection. People who cannot tolerate boredom cannot think deeply. Full stop. The ability to sit with boredom is the ability to hold attention on one thing long enough to go deep into it. Endless content has destroyed our boredom tolerance. Every moment of discomfort now has an immediate escape. Rebuilding the ability to be bored, to sit for 5 minutes without your phone and not run from that discomfort is one of the highest leverage things you can do for your mind. Buddhist monks didn't practice this because they enjoyed suffering. They practiced it because they understood. The ability to stay with discomfort is the foundation of any mastery. Block 3, the power of silence, zazen, and deep work. Try something right now. Put the phone down. Close anything you have open. Just sit. Do nothing. Most people won't last 2 minutes before reaching for something. Not because anything urgent came up, because silence is unbearable. Because in silence, uncomfortable thoughts surface. Because a brain conditioned to constant noise perceives its absence as a threat. But silence is exactly where real capability is built. The Zen master Dogen wrote in the 13th century, "If you cannot find truth right where you are, where else do you expect to find it?" Zen Buddhism developed a practice called Zazen, seated meditation. The form is simple. Sit, align your posture, and observe the mind, not trying to think nothing, just noticing what's there. A thought arrives, notice it. It passes, notice it. No grabbing, no pushing away, just presence. The first real result of this practice is not calm, it's clarity. You begin to see your mind as it actually is. You see the patterns, you see what pulls you away and why. You see the fears that live underneath your procrastination. Newport described the second result from a neuroscience angle. Regular silence in any form, not just formal meditation, physically restructures the brain. It strengthens the ability to sustain attention. It develops what scientists call working memory, the ability to hold several things in mind simultaneously without losing the thread. It improves the quality of thinking overall. He calls this deep work performed in a state of complete distraction free focus. He believes it's one of the most valuable and one of the rarest skills in the modern world. Rare precisely because most people have destroyed their capacity for it through constant attention switching. Newport offers a specific technique he calls productive meditation. It doesn't require setting aside special quiet time. The idea, when you're doing something physical, walking, commuting, exercising, direct your mind toward one specific professional problem, not the whole problem, one concrete next step. Hold it there. When the mind drifts, and it will gently bring it back. No self criticism, just notice, return. This trains concentration using time that would otherwise be spent passively consuming content. 20 minutes of focused walking beats an hour of scattered desk sitting every time. The most important decisions of my life didn't happen at a keyboard, they happened on long walks. When I let my mind work slowly through a problem without rushing, without external noise. When did you last sit in silence, no phone and no earphones for even 10 minutes, not counting sleep? Drop it in the comments if it's been a while. That's an important signal. A real rest for the brain isn't scrolling, it's the absence of incoming stimuli, a quiet walk, a slow meal without a screen, a few minutes of just sitting. This is when the brain enters what scientists call the default mode network, where deep integration of experience happens, where creative thinking emerges, where problems quietly solve themselves. Fill every pause with stimulation and you rob your brain of recovery, not physical, cognitive. Over time, the capacity for deep thought erodes. Zen masters said it best. A quiet mind is not an empty mind, it is a sharp one. Like a lake that shows a clear reflection of the sky, but only when the surface is still. Block 4, intentional action, the Shaolin method. Silence and awareness are not the end goal. They're the foundation for action. Without action, everything else is just interesting reading. There's a trap that people fall into when they start meditating or reading philosophy. They think a lot. They become very aware and they do very little. Meditation without action leads to stagnation. Action without reflection leads to burnout. You need both. The Shaolin monks are perhaps the most famous example of this balance. Hours of meditation and hours of intense physical training. They understood what modern science has only recently confirmed. Mind and body are not separate. The quality of your mental state shapes the quality of your action. The quality of your action shapes your mental state. The Shaolin monk approached every movement in martial arts exactly as he would a meditation session, with complete attention, with intention, without automatism, not just repeating motion, fully present inside each movement. In practice, intentional action means 5 things, one focus at a time. Multitasking is a myth. The brain doesn't work in parallel, it switches between tasks, and every switch costs time and energy. The person who thinks they're doing 3 things at once is doing 3 things poorly while burning extra resources. Newport's research shows that even 1 or 2 hours of genuine deep work per day, single task, no switching, produces more than a full day of scattered reactive activity. 2 rituals of beginning. The brain runs on association. If you start serious work in the same place at the same time with the same sequence of actions every day, your brain begins to associate that context with focused state. Over time, simply walking into that space or doing that sequence switches the mind into work mode. Darwin worked only in the mornings, then walked the same route every day. Kafka wrote only at night in complete silence. Pressfield put on special work shoes and lit a candle before writing. These weren't quirks, they were signals to the brain. This is time for serious work. Your ritual can be anything, a specific coffee, a specific location, specific music, or silence. What matters is consistency. 3, structured, deep thinking. When you face a complex problem, don't try to solve all of it at once. First, define the variables clearly. What do you already know? What are the constraints? What is the one specific question that needs answering right now? The brain is excellent at working with a concrete question. It struggles badly with a massive fuzzy task. When you feel paralysis looking at something big, that's the signal to break it down. Find the one next concrete step. Do it. Then find the next. 4, protect your focus time. Deep work is rare, not because people are lazy, but because culture and organizations actively destroy it. Open offices, instant message cultures demanding immediate replies, meetings that shatter any flow state. If you want to do something serious, you have to actively defend the time for it. Block specific hours, turn off notifications, tell people you're unavailable. In a world where being constantly reachable is treated as a virtue, this takes some courage, but it's non-negotiable. 5, the body is an ally. Physical activity directly affects cognitive quality. Movement increases blood flow to the brain, stimulates neurotropic factors that literally help the brain grow and repair itself, and reduces cortisol, the hormone that destroys concentration. The Shaolin monk who sat in meditation for hours also moved for hours, not I'll train, then I'll work, but a recognition that working on the body is working on the mind. Intentional action isn't about doing more, it's about doing less, but completely. One focus, full presence. This sounds simple. It is extremely hard in a world designed to fragment your attention at every turn. That's exactly why it's so rare and exactly why it's so valuable. Block 5, the patience of the lotus. There's a moment in any serious process of change, of building a skill, reshaping habits, working on something that matters when it looks like nothing is happening. You're doing the right things, you're applying everything, and the results aren't coming. Or they're coming so slowly they're invisible. This is where most people quit. Not because they're weak, because they live in a world that has conditioned them to expect instant reward. Social media gives you likes immediately. Games give you points immediately. Videos give you entertainment immediately. So the brain adapts and starts expecting that any effort should produce visible results right now. If there's no results, something must be wrong. This must not be working. Time to try something else. The monks who developed the lotus method chose that image deliberately. The lotus grows in murky water. Its roots go deep into mud at the bottom, and it rises slowly, very slowly, through darkness, through resistance, through the weight of the medium. Only when it reaches the surface does it bloom in clarity. Nobody sees the lotus growing. The growth happens beneath the surface, in the dark, in the place that looks dirty and wrong. That's a precise description of how any real skill develops. Most growth happens invisibly in the sessions when nothing seems to be changing, when you practice without visible result, when you continue despite the fact that progress is undetectable. Epictetus drew a sharp line between what is in our power and what is not. In your power, the quality of your effort today, not in your power when the result arrives, not in your power, the speed of your progress, not in your power, what others think while you're working. Impatience arises precisely when we try to control what we can't, when we demand the result come faster, when we would demand the process be easier, when we demand to already be where we're only on the way to. Stoic didn't mean indifferent. Marcus Aurelius worked with fierce passion. Epictetus cared deeply about his ideas, but they learned to direct effort where it has leverage on the quality of present action and release everything else. A concrete practice for impatience. When you notice yourself rushing the process, ask one question. Not, did I get the result I wanted? That's not your question. Your question is, was my effort today honest? If yes, that's enough. The lotus rises in its own time. Outro and CTA, so let's bring it all together. The lotus method isn't a collection of techniques, and it's a different relationship with your mind and your work. 1, understand the nature of resistance. Your brain isn't broken, it's just optimized for easy. That can be changed, not by force, but by deliberate restructuring. 2, work with the mind, not against it. Wu Wei is not passivity, it's alignment. Schedule your distraction instead of fighting the urge. Accept difficulty as normal, not as a stop sign. 3, Practice silence regularly, not necessarily meditation, just periods without incoming stimuli, walks without earphones, minutes without a phone, focused thinking on one problem. 4, act with intention. 1, focus. Rituals of beginning, protected time. The body is an ally. 5, be patient. Growth happens beneath the surface. Your job is to continue. The result comes in its own time. This is not fast. This is not easy. It requires consistency. But that's exactly what separates people who do something meaningful from people who are always getting ready to start. The lotus doesn't rush, but it always blooms. Drop a comment with that one thing you've been putting off. Let's hear it. And if you want more content on psychology, philosophy, and the practical side of how the mind actually works, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.